we are going to paint or a leaf, but before we start painting, we're gonna have to sketch it. So I'm gonna show you a easy way to plan a leaf. So what we're gonna do is very gently, I am going to do a long rectangle, and then I am going to do 45 degrees shorter rectangles to both sides, and both of the rectangles that are on the sides will have a point that they're meeting, and this one obviously it's going to come a little bit off my page, and that's okay. So this is I don't know if you can see it. Let's make it a little darker so you can see it. There is my first rectangle, and there is my two small rectangles. So I have three rectangles. The middle part is bigger, the sides are smaller, but they're coming 45 degrees out. So this is my center of my leaf, and from here I will have that beautiful back where the stem goes. So stem's coming out of the my canvas, I guess on this one. But from here what I have is I have a point, so I put a little hat. Then from the edges I'm gonna stick sideways, and I'll show you now. Am I sketching when I am doing a leaf like this? Absolutely not, but for beginners that will help you sketch. So little tiny bat ears, and put a hat on your rectangle, and from this point I am going to connect the dots. So what I'm going to do is round everything and start adding little teeth. And here is one. Now this part and this will round it and come up, come out of, round it and come up. There's my leaf. Let's put some teeth here, round it and come up. So all my lines are guidelines, but now my leaf is taking shape. Then I'm gonna come up and make sure I'm extending this. Now I'm pushing really hard so you guys can see, but when I'm sketching, I am not that aggressive with the pencil. I usually do it very light, because if I have corrections easily, I am going to be able to erase and start again. So there is my leaf, and I'll look at it, decide, do I need to make this a little bit longer? If I need to make it a little bit longer, I will do that. The veins comes to the middle, comes from one point to the side. So different leaves have different direction on their veins. So if you are painting leaves, the best thing to do is actually getting a leaf from outside and observing a little bit to see where the veins are going, and some of them are all going up and they are next to each other. Some of them are just like little trees and they're coming sideways. But this leaf has veins that are reaching a lot of the points that the leaf has. So we're gonna do the main ones. I'm not gonna go in super details, but pretty much this is our leaf. Now, before, and again, I'm saying this again, I sketched this very, very lightly, because if something is not proportionally right in my mind, then I can correct it. So if we want to correct, what I'm gonna do is I'll figure out which part needs to be corrected, and I'm gonna go in and use my already existing line, and I'm going to correct what I feel like needs to be extended or taken out. So this is what I am going to extend, is the front of the leaf, and then the other part is right here. I am going to make it smaller. Same on this side. So that is why we don't want to push really hard on the pencil, because if we want to fix fixing this with eraser, I'll be pushing and destroying the paper. So we want to be light-handed, and I'm going gently to take away a lot of the lines. Okay, so what color is going to be the leaf? Is it going to be brown? Is it going to be yellow? Is it going to be green? This is going to be up to you, but pretty much it's kind of the same technique. And I am going to pull some pencils out, like orange and reds, yellow, black, brown, because this leaf is going to be a fun one. We're going to have some reds, we are going to have some yellows. So what do we do when we're having watercolor pencils? This is perfect for beginners. All right, so what I'm gonna do is deciding on what my leaf is going to be. It's going to mostly be red. So I'm going to take my pencil and apply a little bit more pressure where I want more color to sit on the paper and not dissolve. If I want my color to dissolve, I'll be holding my pencil kind of sideways, finger on one side, and I'll gently be rubbing it onto my paper, and that is going to give me less of a pigment on the paper, so it's going to be gentle. So I'm not pushing a lot of pressure on the paper, because when I'm putting pressure on the paper, it creates indents, and it's going to leave that kind of indent on the paper. So if you decide to move a line, make sure you're not doing it after you do this, because it will be kind of hard. So I'm going to get my leaf a little red, and I'm going to emphasize or go a couple of times on certain areas where I want to leave a little more pigment. Now, when we're coloring with or using this type of watercolor, we can make our page or our paper wet, our canvas wet. But when we're using pencil, we don't want to do that, because the pencil actually, it's scratching on the paper. So if you have wet paper, the paper gets a little bit softer as a surface. So it's going to ruin the paper. And then you are not going to see, I guess, the right look from watercolor or watercolor pencil. You are going to have a little bit more of an area that it's going to be digged in, and you're going to see that. So this is the difference between just the tubes, the watercolor that it's in tubes, and it's you can use water to make it more transparent or less, but this one's you want to use the water after you apply the pigment on your paper. Okay, so I am going to get some veins in here. So on the veins again, what am I doing? Putting a lot more pressure. So again, I cannot water my paper, so I need to pre-plan where my pigment and what color I'm going to put where and how much, because once I water my paper, I would have to wait until it dries, and I'm sure you guys are not going to want to be around for that. It's going to take a long time. So I'm going to go to a orange red. And I know these colors will mix, so I'm putting kind of a darker orange, yellow. I'm doing a little bit of a darker orange here, but not as dark as this. This is almost like red orange, and then kind of almost like a burgundy red. All right, so I am going to leave this for now. I'm gonna do the background later. The most important thing is not passing to my background, keeping everything inside the leaf. So gently I am going to activate my pencil. And do you see how easy that happens? I can even go to a bigger brush. But this is okay. So the less pressure you put, the easier you are going to have this pencil ink distributed around. Thanks, Joe. Good tips. So I left the area that was completely white, and I'm just distributing the color. So I'm leaving part to be coming from the orange side. Okay, so. All right, you want to see what's going to happen if I use a little bit of the other paint, and I don't even have to pour because I already have paint. It's dried up, but it's watercolor, so I can just again activate it gently with water, and then I'm going to just touch. And since it's wet, do you see how intense this color is? So what are we learning? Pencils are great, but those tubes are so much better. So it's the wet watercolor. Let's get a little yellow. So if you decide to take the pencils on a trip, you can start something and then finish it when you get home, and that's still okay. I use the pencils actually for illustrating, and I have used the other paints for illustrating, so there's really no one recipe. But I do feel like a lot of times I go back to the paints, to the liquid paint, and you can see how that color is more intense. Let's find, okay, yellow ochre. Let's do a little tiny bit of that, and some brown. Sienna. Let's get that out. And when the leaves are, I guess, turning colors, sometimes they can get a little spots that are a little bit ahead. They're turning brown. So if our leaves are red, it could be getting a little bit brown, tiny spots. So that's what I'm going to try to do, tiny little brown spots, and we can do that on the edge. And that's great. Somewhere it's been eaten up. Okay, wash that brush and took some of the water out so I can use just barely water brush to extend the stem. Bring it in. Taking a little bit of blue. So what happens with the blue and the orange? It gives me slight green. Okay, let's get the umber. It's a yellow umber. And instead of brown on the yellow, I am going to go a little umbery. And we're gonna finish up with a fast background. So for our pencils, totally switched on you guys. It's all good. At least you get to see the beginning of the pencils and ending with the watercolor tubes. So the palette is very similar. Let's wake some of this blue. And I'm turning it around, making it easy on my hand and getting some blue. Water. Gonna try not to get too close to my leaf. I just want the background to be barely there. And you're gonna see how when I have my canvas wet, when I touch down with the paint gets distributed really cool. It's like little clouds of paint going everywhere. Now before I get close to the leaves, I'm gonna have to make sure it's all dry because I don't want my blue to sip into my beautiful orange, red. Super easy way to do leaf. So this is definitely a beginner's painting, and I'm gonna bring in some of those colors. I think our red probably is dry here. Bring that in, turning around, making it easy so I don't need to fight against I know I'm going to touch up a little bit more after it dries, but for now, I think I'm gonna leave it here. A little bit of the black so you get an idea. Just kind of pushing certain things to be a little bit more visible using the tip of my brush. A little shadow here and there, so you can use either a darker blue or black, or you can use a little bit of purple, whatever makes you happy, because that's the whole idea. Let's get a little more brown. Just add a little more brown on those areas that are turning brown now. Get water, give a little bit to the side around the brown that I put so it kind of spreads on its own. I want more intense color in the center of those spots. And I think I'm going to leave it here, and when it dries I am going to touch up a little bit more. I would want to work a little bit more on the red and make it pop a little bit. And also when I'm using white, let me show you what happens. just in one tiny brush stroke. So white, when you're using watercolor white, it doesn't really cover the surface, but what it does, it will give you kind of tones down the color. So I'm just gonna look where I want to put a little bit of a highlight, let's say right here, that it's much darker. So I'm going, because the white is going to be transparent, but it's still going to give me a little bit less of a color, so it tones it down enough. So I'm going to go back and touch those areas when everything is dry, but I cannot do it right now. Alright, so this is our fall leaf. We are done with it. The only little thing I need to do is put my signature. I'm gonna decide what is my top, what's my bottom, is it sideways, is it going this way? I think it's gonna go this way, so my signature is gonna go right very little. Barely touch the canvas.